session, we would be discussing template to approach system design interview problems. So system design interviews are often intimidating, and it could be as vague as designing a well-known product X or so. And these questions are quite ambiguous and seem unreasonably broad. So basically, uneasiness of a candidate is quite understandable. After all, how could anyone design a popular product in an hour that has taken hundreds, if not thousands, of engineers to build? Okay, but the good news is that there's no one exact replica of that design in that particular hour. It's just a rough idea or a rough design what they expect. For example, if we talk about Google search, it looks very simple, but however, the amount of technology that is under beneath it, simplicity is truly amazing. If no one expects that's the case, and what is the benefit of this system design interview? So the benefit is like system design interview simulates the real life problem solving where two co-workers can collaborate on an ambiguous problem and come up with a solution that meets their goals. The problem is definitely open-ended, and there's no perfect answer for that. The final design here is less important compared to the work we have to put in designing the whole process. This allows us to basically demonstrate our design skills, defend our design choices, and respond to the feedbacks in a constructive manner. Engineering is a real disease of many engineers, as they like to design purity and ignore trade-offs, but they're often unaware of the compounding cost of over-engineering systems. And many companies has to pay high price for their ignorance, right? So certainly we do not want to demonstrate this tendency in a system design interview. Other red flags that we do not want to demonstrate is tendency want to demonstrate this. Other red flags includes basically narrow-mindedness or being stubborn or reluctant to change something in that interview or so. So being open to ideas and feedbacks is the things that they are looking for. So now in the coming up slide, we'll be discussing a template or a framework to approach these system design interview problems. We would be laying down certain steps which we should follow to basically come up with the design in a step-by-step manner. So to start with, let's see, we have 4 steps that we follow to approach these problems. So the first flag is understand the problem and requirements. So the first goal of any interview is just first try to understand the problem and understand what all the requirements, and just try to lay down all the requirements that you have to build, that you have to meet in your system design or in your product that you are designing in this designing for this problem. So let's take an example. Yeah, so understand the problems and requirement is the first step. So in a system design interview, giving out answers quickly without thinking gives no bonus points. Answering without a thorough understanding of the requirement is a huge red flag, right? And as the interview is not a trivia contest, like it does not depend how fast you answer. There is no right answer. So one thing to notice: do not jump right in to give a solution. Just slow down a bit and then think deeply and ask questions to clarify the requirements and assumptions quoted by the interviewer. Like you have to design this. Just try to ask questions and try to understand the problem first. This thing is extremely important when you are in a system design interview. As an engineer, we like to solve hard problems and jump into the final design. However, this approach is likely to lead us to the design like to solve hard problems and jump into the final design. However, this approach is likely to lead us to designing a wrong system. And one of the most important skills as an engineer is to ask the right question. That is a green flag. Like if we are asking the right questions and make the proper assumptions and gather all the information you need to build a system before starting giving answer, proposing a design. So the one thing I can tell you would be do not afraid to ask any questions that you need to understand the problem. And when you ask a question, the interviewer either answers your question directly or will ask you to make certain assumptions. If the latter happens, then just write down those assumptions on a whiteboard, on a paper, or whatever software you are using if you are giving an online interview or so. And we might basically need these assumptions later on when we are designing our system. And then the next thing is what kind of questions to ask. As questions to understand the exact requirements. Like here's a list of sample questions that I can suggest you can ask. Like if I can talk about, I can say like what specific feature we are going to build that we can ask. Like how many users that product or software will have that we have to design, and basically how fast does the company anticipate to scale, or like how fast we're anticipating that software to scale up to meet the user requirements, and what are the anticipated scales in like in 3 months, 6 months, and a year. And what is the tech stack company wants to, or they wants to use for this product to develop, like, and what existing service we might leverage to basically simplify the design. Okay, so these questions we can ask. So, like for example, you can take example of a news feed system, right? So if I have to mock a conversation between an interviewer and the interviewee, then like candidate can ask like, are we building a mobile app or a web app or both? Then the interviewer can reply like, we are building both. Then candidate can ask like, what are the most important feature of this product that we have to build? Then interviewer can write like, ability to make a post and see friends, like for a news feed, like we are building a news feed, right? So there should be ability to basically make a post or make a news feed and able to see the news feed of our friends and followers and all. So yeah, then candidate will ask like, is the news feed stored in a reverse chronological order or a particular order? Chronological order means by timestamp, like in sequence of date. So we are asking like whether it would be in a reverse chronological order or it would be in some particular order. The particular order means like, is each post is given a different weight. For instance, like posts from your close friends are more important than posts from a group. Like, so basically the post from our friends will come first, then the post from a group will come. So if we have to do design in that way, then we have to give more weightage to the post from our friends than post from the group. Then interviewer will reply like, to keep things simple, let's assume that the feed is sorted by reverse chronological order. Then candidate will ask like, how many friends can a user have? Then interviewer replies 5,000. Then candidate asks like, what is the traffic volume? Interviewer replies like, assume 10 million daily active users, or DAO we call that. Then candidate asks like, can the feed contain the news feed contain images, videos, or just it would be a simple text? Then simple questions, and that can be asked to an interviewer, and it is important to understand the requirements and clarify these ambiguities before starting your design. This is the thing that is being said. So in the first step, we have to first try to understand the problem and requirement and try to ask questions to basically understand it. Now move on to second step. It states that propose a high level design and get a buy-in from the interviewer. So in this step, we basically aim to develop a high level design and reach an agreement with the interviewer on the design. It's a great idea to collaborate with the interviewer during this whole process. So we will start by coming up with a blueprint of a design, then asking for feedback on that. So we can try treating our interviewer as a teammate and try to work together with him and try to come up with a solution with him. So like, basically, many good interviewers love to talk and get involved. Then the second point we can say is like, we can draw box diagrams, and we can draw a box diagram with the key components on whiteboard or on paper or whatever online design we are using to basically build our system design. This diagram might include clients such as mobile and web APIs, web servers that we are using, data stores, cache, CDN, message, pretty much all the components that we saw in our previous parts and all. We can, if we are using that, then we can try to draw boxes and try to label those boxes with the corresponding components or so. Then the third thing we can do is like, we can do a backup envelope calculation. Like in the previous part we saw, right? Like how we can do backup envelope calculation, which is basically a rough estimate of what we are building, like how much space, how much CPU and all we need, or basically to build our system. So we can have a blueprint for this scale based on our scale constraints also. We can, throughout our interview process, we must think out loud and try to pronounce whatever we are thinking also. We can communicate with our interviewer, and if the backup envelope is necessary before diving it, like we can communicate him, because like, do he really need to do backup envelope estimation for this thing or not? If he say so, then we can go with that. Else we can move to the other parts. Then, if possible, we can go through few concrete cases. Like this will help us to basically frame high level design, and it is also likely that the use case would help us to discover edge cases that we have not considered. So we can have some certain concrete cases for our system design of our system, and then we can try to see like whether we are considering all edge cases or not. Then we can again ask like, do he wants us to include API endpoints? Then we can, if he wants, then we can give him some certain API endpoints that would be required if we are building our system. That so we can suggest those get, post, and updated API points which might be required by our system to make any change or get any data, get some kind of data or so. Then again, same is say for database schema, like we can suggest if he's asking, then we can suggest like which choice of database we would be using and what would be the schema of our database. This all depends upon the problem. And for large design problems like designing a Google search engine or something, this is a bit of too low level. However, but it depends on interviewer to interview. If he wants to focus on that part, then we can highlight that. For a problem like designing the backend of a multiplayer poker game, this is a fair game. Communicate with, yeah, that is pretty much like based on the system, based on the design, we can decide like do we on based on the interview ask, we can say like whether we want to suggest it or not. Now let's right. So that is now let's assume an example of a news like we can carry forward the same example, which is that news feed system. So as of so like here we can divide our system into two flows. One is the feed publishing flow where we publish the field, and the other is the news feed building flow. So in the feed publishing flow, when a user publishes a post, corresponding data is written to our cache or database. The post will be populated into the friends. Like whoever is the friend of that will get the post written to his column or to his table or something. So that if somebody that friend is fetching this post, then he can get the post of that person. And the news feeding building and the want to see my news feed, and it will basically we will be building my news feed with all the news feeds of my friends and group of friends, and we can build it in a reverse chronological order as we saw, as we asked that from the interview. So on the so this is pretty much on if I am building a diagram side, then on the diagram side I can simply say like there would be a web browser, mobile app, and DNS, and then from a web browser the request is going to load balancer, and then it is going to web servers, and from the web server it is going to my newsfeed posting service, and then there could be cache, and there's a newsfeed cache, and there would be a database to store, and also pretty much we can design boxes and all as per our requirement also. So we will discuss this thing in detail in the further parts, but as of now we can say that we can design something of that sort. Okay. Step is to deep dive in your design. So by this step, we and our interview could have already we have achieved following objectives with our design so far. Like we have agreed on the overall goals and the feature or scope of the design. We have sketched out a high level blueprint for the overall design, and we have obtained certain feedback from our interview on our high level design. And we have had some initial idea about the areas to focus on and focus in and deep dive on, and we have we know certain pointers on which to deep dive based on his or her feedback. So now we will start working with our interview to identify and prioritize components in the architecture. Like it has a wireless system design can have multiple components, and also now we can discuss with this our interview and ask him to basically drill down certain component or architecture. So it's worth stressing that every interview is different. Sometimes the interviewer may give off hints that he likes focusing on high level design. Sometimes for a senior candidate, interview or decision could be on the system performance also characteristic, like focusing on bottlenecks and resource estimation and all that. In most cases, the interviewer may want us to dig into details of some system components. Like for example, if you take example of a tiny URL system, it is interesting to deep dive into the hash function hash function design that can convert a long link to a small one. And for a chat system, on the other hand, we can discuss how to reduce latency and how to support online and offline status are two interesting topics. Then the next thing is time management is essential, as it is easy to get carried away with minute details that do not demonstrate our abilities. Like so we must look closely to the signals given by our interviewer, and we must try not to get into unnecessary details. For example, talking about some deep algorithm like edge algorithm of Facebook, feed ranking in detail is not a part of a news feed system design thing. Like we should not go in detail of that, as it takes much precious time and does not prove our ability to design a scalable system. So like for example, if we talk about this news feed application, then two most important things use case that we can talk about is the one is the feed publishing, and second is the news feed retrieval. So these two features we can talk in detail. We can ask like how to publish a feed. We can go in deep in like how to publish this news feed, and then how to retrieve this news feed from our followers, from our friends, and from our celebrities and all. In which mechanism we follow, and which we will try to feed the we will try to retrieve these news feeds. So we can concentrate on these parts of a news feed in detail, and this way we can cover the meat of this a system design interview. So that is pretty much on this deep dive in design. The next step would be the next and the last step in that our journey should be the wrapping up. So here we try to wrap up things. In this final step, the interviewer might also ask us to follow certain follow-up questions, right? And to give a follow-up question or to give us a freedom to discuss any additional points. So here are certain directions that we can follow. The interviewer might want to identify system bottlenecks and discuss potential improvements so that we can discuss. And we should never say our design is perfect and nothing can be improved. There's always a scope of improvement. So there is always something to improve. This is a great opportunity to show our critical thinking and leave a good final impression. Like we can still try to find out something and we can give the critical thinking. We can show our critical thinking and give a good final impression via this. And it could be useful to give the interviewer a recap of our design. This is particular. Like we can. This is particularly important if you suggest a few solutions. Like if pressing our interview memo can be helpful after a launch, then like it's good to basically at this point give a recap or just a summary of our whole design. And then handling error cases like server failure, network logs, etc. are also interesting to talk about. Then the next is like operations issues are worth mentioning, like how do we monitor metrics and error logs and automation, so then how to roll out systems in case of some failure or some wrong update or so. And then how to handle the next scale curve is also interesting topic. Like for example, if our current design supports 1 million users, then how we will change things to basically support 10 million users, that we can talk about. And then other things like we can propose other refinements that we need to and then we can also propose a certain refinements also if we have time also. So that is pretty much on the steps part. Like we should first start with understanding the problem, then proposing the high level design and getting a buy in, and then going deep into a deep dive into design, going deep in certain parts of a design. Like if it's a case of new suite, then going on how to basically how to feed a new suite and how to retrieve a new suite. These should be the two topics on which we can deep dive in. At last, we can wrap up and we can just give a feedback of we just can give a recap of summary of our whole design and ask them, and the interviewer might ask us some follow-up questions, and we can also give some we can talk about some other things also in this part and try to wrap up the things in this. So these are the pretty much 4 steps that we follow. Now let's talk about certain do's and don'ts. So we can start with do's. So as the do's in the system design interviews are like ask for clarification and avoid making assumptions. Like always, whenever something is clear, just ask for clarification instead of assuming something. And if you're assuming it also, then also call this out. Like, I'm assuming that, and if he's not okay, then he will tell you what he want in that case. And the second thing is understand the problem requirements. That is our step also. And then there's no one size fits all for solution. So try to tailor our solution to the specific problem, right? Then communicate it with our interviewer and say our thought process. That is the most important. Throughout our journey, we should communicate with our interviewer and try to say our thought process so that he must get an idea how we are thinking and how we are approaching a problem. Then propose multiple approaches if possible. Like if to solve a problem, it's good idea if you know some multiple approaches, and we can call out like there can be multiple ways to do this thing, but the most suitable we think of this where it could be this, and why this could be most suitable. That also we can call out. So and then focus on critical component first and provide details for each component. Like the interview has a limited time, so just try to focus on the most critical component first, and later on if interviewer wants to go to minute details of some other components, then only go. Just try to first focus main on concentration on the most meaty and the critical components of that system. Then collaborate with the interview and bounce ideas off them. Yeah, that is, the collaboration is a very good skill, and interviewers are hungry and are basically definitely looking for the skill in a candidate also. So this is a very nice to do collaboration on that part. And last is persevere and never give up. Like most of the time, the system would be quite new to us, but try to persevere and never give up, and try to propose whatever solution you can have or whatever you have learned or whatever you have worked so far. Try to give a certain solution based on that. The interview can be ambiguous in any form, but if we must never give up and try to give the most suitable answer, most best answer that we can do at that time. Now, if you don't be unprepared for a common interview question. Just try to be prepared for all the common interview questions which are generally asked in system design interview, and don't propose solution without clarifying the requirements and terms. And just try to understand things first. Don't focus too much on a single component at the beginning, right? Don't hesitate. Like first try to tell the whole design, and then only start focusing on a single component or a certain part. And then don't hesitate to ask for hints when stuck, right? And don't stay silent. Communicate your thought process. That is very important. and don't assume that the interview is over after giving the design. Ask for feedbacks or any comments or any suggestions he wants to, any particular area he wants to talk about. And the last most important thing is the time allocation. Like generally, these system and design interviews are 45 minutes. We can divide our time in a way like we can spend 3 to 10 minutes, max 10 minutes to basically understand the problem, and then proposing the high level design in next 10 to 15 minutes. It can be less than 10 minutes also based on the time we have, or 15 minutes, and then we can deep dive on certain parts and spend 10 to 25 minutes in the deep dive part, and then at last we can simply wrap up things in 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah, so yeah, that is pretty much on the on how to basically act and perform in a system design interview. And basically we can follow those 4 steps as a template to basically solve, or basically attempt these system design interviews. So in the following parts, we will one by one discuss different case studies and try to use these steps and to solve or to design these systems. So yeah, thanks a lot.